Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. My parents divorced when I was 9, then my mother remarried a new man 6 months later. My new stepfather was loaded, so I always felt that's why my mother decided to rush into things because of his wealth. I get along well enough with my stepfather. It's his son I've always had problems with. My stepbrother's name is Ian, and he's always had it out for me. I never did anything to him, but as soon as he found out his dad and my mom were dating, he hated me. He would bully me relentlessly, constantly making my life a living hell. But even that would have been tolerable if I at least had my mother on my side. For whatever reason, Mom always sided with Ian during our disagreements. When I was younger, I thought maybe she was just trying to get on Ian's good side and prove that she wasn't playing favorites. But as the years have gone by, I think maybe she genuinely just likes Ian better. On paper, he's a great guy, former student body president, captain of his water polo team, and now Ivy League graduate. But if only people knew what a jerk he was behind closed doors. And now it's only gotten worse since he got engaged to Megan. Again, to an outsider, she seems like the perfect girl, except I know the truth. She's a selfish gold digger. But she has won over everyone in my family, while also making my life a living hell. She and Ian are perfect for each other. The most recent drama is threatening to uproot my entire living situation. A few years ago, I was having issues with a roommate and needed to find a new place to live. My stepdad offered to let me rent out one of his houses, and I've been living here ever since. It's a gorgeous 4-bedroom house that's just about a 10-minute walk to the beach. And although the size of it may be a little overkill for just my cat and me, I love living here. The problem? Megan found out that this house is a part of Ian's inheritance. I've always known this and was aware that if anything ever happened to my stepdad, that Ian would inherit the property and undoubtedly evict me. But I thought I would be able to stay here as long as my stepdad is alive. But now Megan is threatening to ruin all that. She and Ian have been engaged for a few months now, and all of a sudden, she's adding a new stipulation to their relationship. She wants them to inherit this house early. She reasons that it's far too much space for just me anyway. Fair point. And that she and Ian will be starting a family in a few years. This would be the perfect place for them to raise kids. And since I don't have any family plans on the horizon, they should be allowed to move in here. What really grinds my gears, though, is that they tried to convince our parents to kick me out before they simply came and asked me if they could move in here. Luckily, my stepfather decided to stay neutral and said that he'll let us work this out amongst ourselves. But my mother is 100% on board with Ian and Megan. She thinks it would be selfish of me to keep this place to myself. And she's already told me she would like me to pack up all my things and find a new place. But to be honest, a big part of me wants to put my foot down and say no, simply because I've never had the upper hand over Ian before. Also, I'm sick and tired of my mom constantly taking his side. It hurts that she won't defend her daughter, especially when moving out would basically mean I'd be losing everything. My stepdad is letting me live here for an amazingly low amount per month, especially considering that the cost of rent in this area has spiked tremendously in the time that I've lived here. And to make matters worse, I'm in between jobs right now. I'm a florist, and the company I worked for went under last month. I have a potential new job lined up, but all of this time without work has made a huge dent in my savings. If I were to be forced to move right now, I would have to sell everything and use all the rest of the money I have on a deposit on a new place. If Ian and Megan move in here, it will mean I will lose everything. So I decided to go to Megan's apartment and lay all of this out on the table for her. I thought surely that if she understood where I was coming from, she would see that I'm not just trying to be difficult. Most reasonable people would be able to empathize with my situation and give a future family member a helping hand, but not Megan. After our conversation, I'm convinced she's truly heartless. I showed up at her door yesterday when I knew she'd be home alone. She looked surprised to see me when she answered the door, and then was visibly annoyed, but she let me in anyway. I explained to her my current lack of work and how much of a financial bind moving would put me in. I also mentioned that I didn't think it was fair to try and push me out like this, and that if she truly loves Ian, then their marriage shouldn't depend on whether they receive his inheritance now or later. And although I was being completely calm and level-headed, this set her off. She told me I was overstepping and that she didn't like that I was insinuating that she was only marrying Ian for his money and possessions. She also said that I was being selfish and immature for refusing to move out when legally the house is part of Ian's inheritance. She demanded that I leave and said that she would be talking to my stepdad about this and convincing him that he needs to kick me out right away. I stormed out, raging the entire way home about the encounter. Now it's been almost 24 hours and I haven't heard from anyone in my family. I assume Megan did exactly what she said she would and went to talk to my stepfather right away. But what exactly did she say? I'm sure she painted me in the worst light possible, playing whatever angle she possibly can to get what she wants. I don't doubt that I'll be getting a call from my mother soon, with her letting me know how disappointed in me she is. Nothing I'm not used to. But I can't help but think, what if I really am just being difficult? Of course, having to move would take an incredible toll on me financially, but I would recover after I get another job in place. And it's true that the house is a little much for just me and would be much more suited for Ian and Megan's future family. But I just can't shake that it isn't fair for them to just push me out without me having a say in it. I guess all that's left to do now is wait to hear from my stepdad about what he's decided to do. Well, I'll be damned. I have someone on my side after all. My stepfather called me about an hour ago. He said that he had just spoken to Megan. I held my breath, anxious to hear what they talked about. Then the strangest thing happened. He started laughing. I couldn't fathom what could possibly be funny in a situation like this. Man, Ian sure does know how to pick 'em, huh? He said sarcastically. I let out a sigh of relief. He was letting me know that he thinks Megan is just as insane as I do. He went on to let me know that he would not be kicking me out of the house, and that he told Megan the house will stay a part of Ian's inheritance, but they won't be receiving it until he dies. He told her that she has no right to try and push me out, and that after the way she conducted herself, he has concerns about her marrying his son. I couldn't believe it. Someone in my family finally stood up for me. I thanked him for telling her off, and also thanked him for letting me continue to stay in his home. He said it was no problem. He knows I'm in a rough spot right now and is happy to help in any way he can. He also said to not worry about not having my mom's support. He'd had a word with her about the situation too. Apparently, now she's more understanding of my side of the story, and she told him she's going to make an effort to be more supportive of me. It feels good to know that he notices these kinds of things. He may never be my real dad, but he sure is a hell of a stepdad. And although I know that Ian and Megan drama is probably something I'll have to deal with in many more ways over the years, I'm happy to know that I have someone in my corner through it all. And of course, happy to know that I get to stay here and keep all of my belongings. NTA. Oh my God, I can't believe Megan would be so selfish. Her coming in and wanting her husband's inheritance immediately is a huge red flag. To be honest, if I was Ian, I would be super suspicious of her. Gold digger activity for sure. ESH. Okay, I know this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I think everyone kind of sucks here. It definitely does sound like Megan and Ian are not being very understanding of your situation. But it also sounds like you're being so stubborn because you have a chip on your shoulder over your mother never taking your side. I feel like you're holding a grudge against your family members, and that's why you're so adamant about staying there. Just my 2 cents. Me, 62, and my oldest daughter, female 28, always have had a rough relationship. I had PTSD after fleeing my home country, and looking back, I might have also had postpartum depression after she was born. I admit I've been very hard and strict with her, more than I did with her youngest sister, my youngest daughter, 24. I raised my daughter with outdated, non-Western principles. I see that now. But back then it seemed right because I was raised the same way. My daughter has been struggling with depression, and in my attempt to understand why we got into an argument, I've tried to talk about it a few times, but she never wanted to. Today she was upset about her grades. She's a master's student. She passed all her exams, but she gets very upset and frustrated when she doesn't get the highest score. I was trying to calm her down and cheer her on. At one point, I asked her, "Why are you like this?" She got furious and told me that I and her dad were the reason why, that her whole life she had to earn our approval. She brought up the time when she scored middle education instead of higher education. Our country has a 3-school system depending on your degrees. Me and my husband were angry and disappointed, and we did not talk to her for 2 weeks, and she could not eat with us at the dinner table. She ate in the kitchen standing up or would put her plate in front of her door and knock. I'm very embarrassed looking back at it, and when she brought it up, I got tears thinking that I did that to my child. I told her that looking back, we see that negative reinforcement wasn't the right way. I told her that we fled our home and started over elsewhere for her future, so is really important to us that she and her sister get high degrees, a good job and a good salary so they have a better life than we had. It was frustrating to us to see that she could do better than average or middle, and we handled it wrongly. I then said, "But we could have never known it would have such effects on your mental health when you got older. Your sister was raised the same way and isn't so insecure. So it's also a little bit, you as a person." The conversation then escalated. She asked me where I got the nerve to blame her personality, while her whole life we made her feel like she had to earn our love and approval. She said this affected her life in every aspect, and it's why she has depression. She called me an a-hole and said that I was basically saying she has a weak personality. I know we made horrible mistakes, and I'm ashamed of the things I've done, but I feel that it's true. Her sister was pushed the same way and isn't so insecure to the point it affects her mental health. She isn't insecure at all. My husband said there was no reason to bring that up. I believe it's not completely our parenting style that has caused her depression. AITA for saying that to her? I understand the confusion about how strict we were with her little sister. I admit that her sister was given more freedom when it comes to social life. She was allowed to hang out with her friends outside of school more than her older sister. When it comes to school and grades, we were as strict, but my youngest did better in high school than her oldest sister. That's also why my youngest was allowed to go out more, and we would not let the oldest go out either as punishment or because we felt she needed to study more. YTA, OP, quit throwing little sister in older sister's face. Maybe the older sister worked just as hard as the little sister, but wasn't as talented academically. Younger sister had a completely different upbringing. If, for example, you had a younger brother and you were both judged on bodily strength, but as a boy the younger brother was naturally stronger, would you praise the younger brother and punish the older sister? You did this to your older daughter. Also, have her evaluated for learning differences. You realize she may have dyslexia or ADHD or both, and you have no idea. YTA, my mother was much like you. Nothing I did was ever enough. It took until this year when I turned 38 to understand that I never started living my life until my late 20s because the entirety of my teens and early adulthood was spent traumatized and in survival mode. You shaped her personality. Your abuse shaped her personality. She is 100% right. You did this to her. You made a broken adult who you convinced wasn't worthy of love. And you're going to have to live the rest of your life with that. I live next to a couple whom I'm friendly with, but not much past "how are you?" and chat about things in the neighborhood. Last week I was out for a morning walk and noticed Amber lugging a butt-ton of plants from her backyard to her porch. She said hello, so I stopped by to chat and see if she needed help. Looked like she was starting her own landscaping company. Turns out she finally felt inspired to work on the new garden she's been planning for months. She ripped out everything she currently had and was going to put it on the curb as freebies. I've always wanted to turn my lawn into a nice garden, so I felt like I struck gold. I offered to pay her because there was a substantial amount of shrubbery, but she refused. I wheelbarrowed everything over to my backyard, brought her some pastries as a thank you, offered cash again or to help with her new garden. She refused, and that was that. I spent the weekend with my boyfriend replanting everything, and our backyard looks great. Until I get a knock on my door yesterday from her husband. Turns out, he said she gave permission for him to tell me this. She struggles with bipolar and was going through a manic episode. There is no new garden that she's been plotting for months, just a bipolar-induced attack on their backyard that she now regrets. She's too embarrassed to talk to me herself. I get it. I struggle with depression, and the few people I have to explain myself to, the better. But she wants her plants back. Apparently that garden was her baby, and in a fit of mania, she destroyed it. I'm sad for her because shitty decisions when you're in the mental toilet suck. But everything is already planted in my backyard and I'm not willing to put in the effort to dig everything up. It'll look awful. And yeah, that's what they're dealing with now, but it's not my fault. I nicely told him pretty much that, and he just said okay and left. Now when I see them, they completely ignore me. I've crossed paths with them 3 times since, and her husband waved, but she didn't even look at me. I saw them taking soil and compost bags out of their car today, and Amber just looked really upset and not at all excited to be working on a new garden. My boyfriend thinks I should offer to give at least some of them back because I'm not exaggerating. She gave me a ton of plants. I just don't want her to think she can be rude to me after her mistake and then get what she wants. AITA? Read through the business you all sent me, and I've decided I'm going to give her a $100 gift card to our local nursery and see if she wants help planting. Someone made a great point that these plants will likely be dead within a week, LOL, especially if they get moved again. I was all very NTA until you pulled the rude card. She's not being rude, she's embarrassed and now trying to reconstruct what she destroyed. She's gutted, she feels like shit, and while you are under no obligation to return the plants, it wouldn't have been unreasonable to meet her in the middle and let her reclaim her most precious ones. You all might have even collaborated on your garden and you could have had a good gardening ally. You aren't technically in the wrong, but your attitude regarding what actually happened sucks. Soft YTA for making this about you. Holy crap, YTA. A manic episode is nothing like depression. She quite literally was not in her right mind and made decisions that she never would have made had she not been ill. You said they completely ignored you, but then the next sentence said the husband waved. She didn't interact because, as her husband has already explicitly told you, she was deeply embarrassed by her actions during her manic episode. You called her rude for being fairly seriously mentally ill? You are absolutely in the wrong here. The only compromise that would be acceptable is for you to say that it was a lot of effort moving and planting all of the plants and you had no idea. Obviously that she was ill when it all happened, so they can have the plants back, but they'll need to come and dig them out themselves. At the very least, offer again to pay for the plants. At the correct value, it would be to replace them as is. Mature shrubs are expensive, so make sure you don't lowball them. That would be the kind, neighborly thing to do. Yes, it's a shitty situation for you, but I think you're well into the territory of taking advantage of someone now that you know the full circumstances. You got hundreds, perhaps thousands in free plants, and are now fully aware of the circumstances.